Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service on behalf of our partnership with Alaska Public Media. And on this Saturday, January 8th, we got a lot going on. If you want to find out additional weather information, you can go to weather.gov. It'll show you the entire country. Just point on the map for an area of interest. You can find out all sorts of forecast, watches, warnings, advisories, and other information. Well, this weekend we have a system that is going to bring snow and icy mixture at times, rain, maybe some nuisance flooding and wind to the Panhandle and Gulf Coast as low pressure moves from the North Pacific up into the lower Gulf. Chicken, Alaska has been down to 60 below zero again this morning 3 times over the past week thanks to bitter cold Arctic high pressure there over the Yukon. And coming up here tonight and Sunday night, we could see enhanced Arctic auroras where skies are clear, though it will be bitterly cold, so that's something to watch out for. But there is some hope for milder mid-January temperatures, especially the southern half of the state here in the coming days ahead, later this coming week. Looking at the latest advisories, watches, warnings, we have a winter storm warning that remains in effect tonight into Sunday for much of the Panhandle for heavy snow that will mix with at times a little sleet or freezing rain before changing to rain along the outer coast. And it will be on Sunday that there'll be some heavier rain falling there across the southern portion of the Panhandle, Ketchikan, around Metlakatla, on over toward, Heidelberg. Those areas there could get enough heavier rain on the snow cover to create a little nuisance flooding. Further north, Juneau has had some wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour. Those high winds will be falling off this evening. And then just a push of some heavier snow working its way westward along the northern Gulf Coast and then getting up into the mountains of the eastern Kenai, Prince William Sound area and flirting with the eastern coastline there of Kodiak over the weekend. There also could be a brief period of blizzard conditions there around Thompson Pass Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. Across the Yukon Valley on up into the eastern Brooks Range, we are looking at winter weather advisories for mainly winds that are going to create bitter cold wind chills and blowing snow. There is a high wind warning for the areas surrounding Norton Sound, including Nome and Stebbins. There'll be some stronger winds tonight into Sunday, and a wind chill advisory just mainly for Point Lay there in the northwest, as the winds will be strong enough there to get wind chills down perhaps as cold as 55 below. Looking at the couple of the webcams from the FAA sites, Ketchikan had a burst of snow today, 3-4 inches as of early afternoon, and then that's going to change over to rain on Sunday, so there could be some minor nuisance flooding as a result. Further west, though, Anvik is enjoying clear skies, but it's breezy and cold. Wind chill are going to be around 50, 55 below tonight, but you have a chance at least to see maybe those enhanced Arctic auroras, because we are watching a little solar disturbance, kind of an enhanced area of solar wind that could spark better auroras across the Arctic. And we are now at first quarter moon Sunday morning, and although there will be some clear areas, especially up through the interior, it's going to be very cold. Well, looking at the satellite imagery, you can see the clouds coming up there from the bottom of the screen. That is the low pressure system down in the northern Pacific, and that's going to be heading northward up into the southwestern Gulf as we go into Sunday. Frontal system is bringing that snow, that leading edge of precipitation that's going to work its way northward across the Panhandle tonight, and then further westward along the northern Gulf Coast all the way to the Kenai as we go into early Sunday. And the snow, some of it could be heavy. As I mentioned, Thompson Pass could see a period of blizzard conditions Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. But as the warmer air comes in across the southern Panhandle and the outer coast there of the Panhandle, you're going to see the precipitation, maybe briefly a little freezing rain, but it's going to go over to just plain old rain. And some of that rain could be heavy across the southern Panhandle Sunday, especially afternoon and night, which could lead to a little nuisance flooding, but nothing major anticipated at this time. Blowing and drifting snow possible there across portions of along and south of the eastern Alaska range on Sunday. The system, though, will be weakening by Monday, but still there will be areas of snow or a little mixed precipitation, especially along the Gulf Coast into Monday, with another system south of the eastern Aleutians. But otherwise, no major weather systems after that for a little while. And we'll see cold temperatures, 3 above there, up around Skagway, 11 at Juneau, with rising temperatures through the night and early Sunday. 38 below, though, at Glen Allen, so still some very cold temperatures the south central interior. But look for readings to rise up into the lower 40s along the outer coast there of the Panhandle. 41 perhaps at Craig, 43 at Sitka. We'll see temperatures near 40 at Kodiak, rising into the teens from Anchorage northward, and then still chilly Monday morning, 22 below, but not nearly as cold as the past week. And temperatures will come up as well as we start to get into inland areas, some 20s to near 30 perhaps there, Cordova and Anchorage. Along the Arctic coast, cold though, 30 to near 40 below, still some 50 below zero readings there along the Alcan border. Temperatures will be coming up a bit there, though, off Norton Sound into the single digits above zero Sunday afternoon. And then Monday morning, lows will not be as cold as what they have been this first, say, week of January. They'll be generally below zero, but not as cold as they were. And temperatures will moderate a bit into Monday afternoon along the Yukon River, back up to near zero or so, but still sub-zero along the Arctic coast and North Slope. Along the southwest, we are going to see temperatures still below zero tonight. Like I said, Anvik there will be below zero with that breeze holding up, so bitter cold wind chills. But temperatures will be, you have to go down to the eastern Aleutians, Dutch Harbor westward to be at or above freezing. And temperatures tomorrow still sub-zero through the lower Yukon and mid-upper Kuskokwim River basins, but getting readings back up above freezing there across the Aleutians. And Monday morning lows still could see some readings below zero there across the southwest interior. And we expect temperatures to at least get back up above freezing along much of the Alaska Peninsula, with Kodiak perhaps up there to around 41 or so. That should spare them the threat of any heavier snow. It's going to be kind of a tight wire dance there between rain and snow with the low there in the southwestern Gulf. Quick check, though, for what we're anticipating the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook by the Climate Prediction Center, January 14th through the 18th, centered on mid-January, as for a pretty good likelihood of temperatures to average above normal, especially south central areas. This could push temperatures back up above freezing in that time frame by next weekend. And precipitation is anticipated to average near to a little above normal, with the greatest chance maybe along and south of the Alaska range for precipitation average a bit above normal, because we will likely, in order to get those milder temperatures, we're going to have to see more of a southerly flow of air coming in off the relatively warmer waters of the Gulf. So if you got through this first week of January with the bitter cold, at least there are signs that things.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's time now for your aviation weather. If you have a flight you're thinking about here Sunday into Monday, there will be some trouble spots, especially along the Gulf Coast associated with winter storm conditions, heavy snow, stronger winds, even mixed precipitation. We're also going to have some stronger winds between the Alaska and Brooks ranges there through the Yukon Valley, extending out through west central portions of the state, including St. Lawrence and Nunavik Islands, all the way out toward St. Matthew. And as we go through Sunday morning, IFR conditions will be lifting through the Panhandle and pulling back toward the west, riding along the northern Gulf Coast, including Prince William Sound, the eastern Kenai by Sunday afternoon. We also have an area of IFR there in the eastern Aleutians. And for Monday morning, low pressure taking shape there in the southwestern portion of the Gulf, with a frontal system wrapped around it, kind of curving along the Gulf Coast. That's where we expect the IFR conditions, from the Panhandle all along the Gulf Coast to Kodiak Island, as well as the eastern Aleutians and the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. And then on Monday afternoon, more of the same broad area of IFR conditions from the Panhandle along the Gulf Coast, and also starting to get into the Bristol Bay area as well, Lake Iliamna, and also down there again, continuing across the eastern Aleutians. So for Anaktuvik and Atigun passes, we expect some stronger north winds. There'll be some turbulence there and blowing snow at the surface, though conditions will be VFR. And then as we round down along the west arm of the Alaska Range, look for VFR conditions becoming MVFR. And we expect rather bumpy conditions there as well, some turbulence, rainy past VFR becoming MVFR. And as we round out through the central portion of the Alaskan Range, windy should hold on to VFR conditions. Isabel, VFR becoming MVFR. And Mentasta a little further east will actually become IFR as we get toward midday Sunday into Sunday afternoon and evening. And then further southward, we do see that moisture working its way in from the Gulf. So Tanita will become IFR in the afternoon and certainly for evening. Same thing at Portage Pass, VFR in the morning, but IFR conditions settling in, especially the eastern half of Portage Pass on out across Prince William Sound. And then the Panhandle will see extensive IFR conditions on Sunday, and they will continue there. Chilkoot and White in the north will remain IFR. Freezing levels do bump up ahead of this system there, kind of rotating back toward the northwest. We'll see 2,000 feet over the central Panhandle to as high as 6,000 feet Haida Gwaii. The surface freezing levels remain out over the northern Gulf and then come along the Kodiak Island to the eastern Aleutians and then north generally of the Aleutian chain. Greatest threat for icing on Sunday will be out over the Gulf between 5,000 and 15,000 feet ahead of that low pressure system, and then as the fronts work their way up along the Gulf Coast and into the coastal mountains between 2,000 and 10,000 feet for the day on Sunday. Upper level winds are strongest across the Panhandle up out of the south-southwest over 100 knots, and on the backside we see northeasterly winds from the lower Chukchi Sea out over the western Bering between 65 to 75 knots. Coming down to mid-levels 9,000 feet, stronger winds in the 50 to 75 knot range, again from the south-southwest up into the Panhandle and British Columbia. And then on the backside of these couple of lows out across the Yukon, central Yukon Valley, back through the Seward Peninsula, Nunavik, I should say, St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, winds 55 to 60 knots. And as we come down to 3,000 feet, we can see strongest winds there along the Gulf Coast and Panhandle. That's going to lend toward some low-level turbulence as well, low-level wind shear and turbulence with the frontal system pinwheeling back across the Gulf Coast, and then stronger winds north of the system through the Yukon Valley back out into, say, St. Lawrence Island with winds of upwards to 60 knots. So here is where we expect the greatest threat for some severe turbulence along the central Yukon Valley out over Norton Sound, including St. Lawrence Island all the way to St. Matthew and Nunavik Island, and then a broad area potentially for some severe turbulence along the Gulf Coast, extending especially from the eastern Kodiak Island, eastern Kenai Peninsula through Prince William Sound, eastward Yakutat, and then especially the outer coastal mountains and coast there of the Panhandle, and that will be throughout the day on Tuesday. So that's your flight weather. If you are able to get out, please have a safe flight.
When you think of a national park, you probably envision wide open natural spaces, undisturbed by human activity. There are indeed such places, but even in some of the most remote areas of a place like Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska, the mark of man is present. Marine debris is a menace to the farthest reaches of our globe, and even designated national park lands are not immune. In the summer of 2009, the Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance, a grassroots conservation organization based in Seward, Alaska, decided to do something about the marine debris fouling the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park. Marine debris coordinator Tim Johnson had first-hand experience with the issue.
The summer before, my wife and I, Michelle, had done a paddle from Seward, sea kayak paddle from Seward to Homer. Really, our eyes were open to some areas that we didn't realize there was so much accumulation. It was very deceiving up front. You couldn't really get a feel for the extent and impact of it. You've got this nice high tide line that's quite pristine, and you really don't get a picture for the impact and the amount of debris in that area until you get behind those storm berms. You get back into the lagoons and the vegetation around those lagoons. And then you see the absolute extent back into that veg and how intertwined and enmeshed these decades of trash deposition. So we were just appalled by that and said we got to get something together on a larger scale.
The Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance is a local nonprofit community organization, and they have been instrumental in helping the Park Service obtain funding to get larger boats to help move the debris, and they get volunteer labor and organize the work trips. And so it's really a partnership between the Park Service and the community to help get out and really get a project done that in and of itself any one group couldn't do on their own.
Most of that trash was baggable. However, there were large items, huge, piles of hauser line, for example, that we just had to hoist up onto the boat.
The volunteers didn't just bag, haul, and hoist the garbage, but also carefully recorded what types of debris were collected.
In many ways, the debris itself is a resource. Archaeologists use middens, the trash heaps, as a way of analyzing past cultures. And in one sense, marine debris is a form of a midden. It's a trash heap that left for the future would be something that people could use to analyze our culture. It may not say the best things about our culture or everything that we want, but we need to be able to document what we've done so that we can preserve that legacy, make sure that we as a society don't forget what we've been doing.
We had two larger categories of marine debris that we picked up. Commercial fishing means like, say, gill nets, large hauser lines, anything that would be associated with more of a commercial fishing scale. And then the second category was more recreational fishing and household, which would be general plastics, things like that. So we had about a 75% of the commercial fishing marine debris element, and about 25% of the recreational and household further out the bay. And we had the exact opposite the closer we got to Seward. Within the bay, it was about 25% commercial fishing versus 75% recreational fishing and household.
The trash is not just unsightly for park visitors, but also poses threats to wildlife and marine habitat.
Really one of the larger issues now that you go to this plastic that can really get into the food web and affect the food web differently than something like glass.
These substances, for instance, all these polystyrene blocks that are breaking down into all these little crumbly bits are further breaking down on a microscopic level, and how much of an impact that has, in this ecosystem is yet to be determined, but I think it's got pretty high potential.
Well known that sea turtles will eat plastic bags floating in the water. They look like jellyfish to a sea turtle, and Obviously, a plastic bag doesn't go well in the digestive system of a turtle. Albatross will see small pieces of plastic floating on the surface and think they're small fish and other food sources and eat that in their stomachs, especially in some of the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. They'll find dead albatross that have starved to death with a full stomach, and it's full of pieces of plastic.
We're affecting our local areas this way, but we need to be thinking about it from more of a state and global, international scale. And most importantly, to try and focus on prevention of it coming in the first place. Because we're just going to see this continuing, to build up on our beaches unless we're able to get a little bit more of an approach on prevention on the front end.
Marine debris is really a global problem, in all the oceans, and there are many different sources. Global shipping is one. Fishing debris from commercial fishing, recreational boating activity on land, stuff blowing off land, washing down streams, people just throwing stuff on the shore.
Though the problem can seem overwhelming, Johnson remains upbeat about making a positive difference.
No, you gotta start locally. You gotta, take control of what you can do, and make something with that, and try and move on from there.
Overall, more than 9 tons of debris was removed from the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park and transported back to Seward to be deposited in a landfill.
People gave a lot to the project in order to make it happen. That was awesome. One of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Being able to put that large of a group of volunteers together, dedicated volunteers to put that much effort and give that much time and pull all the different agencies together to see it all happen was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah, very fulfilling experience.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. We begin the last segment with today's sea ice edge, and we can see there's rather extensive ice throughout the northern and eastern Bering along the west and southwest coast down through Bristol Bay and extending out especially along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. And main weather story here coming up through this weekend will be the northeasterly offshore flow that's going to tend to push the ice to the south and west as we go through Sunday and into Monday. Don't expect much of a change in this pattern, at least here in the shorter term. And we'll be watching an area of low pressure and frontal system rotate its way through the Gulf, lifting out of the North Pacific. Low pressure center will move up into the southwest Gulf Sunday. So let's look at what we got going on in the interior of the Panhandle, the inner channels. North winds 35 to 45 knots, Petersburg northward through Juneau and Skagway, and waves 7 to 8 feet. Of higher waves at the mouth of Dixon Entrance, and as we get out along the coast, 40 knot gales to 50 knot southeast to east storm force winds north of Sitka to west of Gustavus and Yakutat, with waves running right around or just above 25 feet. Monday winds come down across the inner canals there. We're looking at south to southeasterly winds 25 to 35 knots, waves 5 to as high as 11 feet around Metlakatla. Only 3 feet with northerly winds 15 knots there in Lynn Canal. And then along the Gulf Coast, winds will be southeast to east to 30 knots and waves in the high teens to near 20 feet. Across the northwestern Gulf Coast, including Cook Inlet, we'll see strongest winds off the Kenai out of the northeast at 50 knots, as well as there at the mouth or lower inlet there of Cook Inlet, with winds of 50 knots and waves as high as 26 feet as you go down into Shelikof Strait. And then northeasterly winds 30 knots, 7-foot waves there, Prince William Sound. Winds will come down on Monday as the low weakens. Generally easterly winds out over the open waters of the Gulf around 25 to near 30 knots, with waves running in the high teens to just over 20 feet. Easterly winds there at the mouth of Cook Inlet at 30 knots and waves 9 feet. For Kodiak Island on Sunday, we'll see strongest winds funneling through Shelikof Strait, northeasterly 50 knots, waves up to 24 feet, 50-knot winds off of Kodiak Island. And then extending, they fall off to out of the northeast, 25 knots there south of Sand Point, and generally 25 knots there on the Bering side, with waves where there's open water of 8 to 10 feet. And then on Monday, winds will be a little bit more of a mixed bag around Kodiak Island at 15 to 20 knots. Waves as much as 11 to 16 feet off of Kodiak Island when it comes to the open waters of the Gulf. And northeasterly 15 to 25 knots, with waves up to 6 feet there north of Cold Bay. Across the Aleutians, a broad northeasterly flow at 35 to 40 knot gales. Waves generally in the 12 to 18 foot range on the North Pacific side, and anywhere from 14 feet near Dutch Harbor upwards to 20 feet there north of Atka and Adak. And then Monday, northeasterly winds continue, turn a little more northerly, but not as strong, 30 to 35 knot winds, and wave heights generally in the mid-teens. And across the west and southwest coast, over the ice, winds will be out of the northeast around 30 to 40 knots. Waves where there is open water could be as high as 12, 13 feet in the vicinity of St. Matthew, St. Paul, and St. George. And on Monday, the winds will come down a bit, but be out of the north-northeast, right around 20 to 25 knots over the ice. That's going to tend to continue to push the ice a bit south and westward. And waves could be as high as 12 feet there in the vicinity of St. Matthew. Along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the west-northwest 10 to 15 knots, and then down along the lower Chukchi Sea northwest coast, northeast to north winds 20 to 30 knots. And on Monday, kind of a mixed bag of winds there along the Arctic coast between Utqiagvik and Kaktovik. But along the northwest coast, northeasterly winds 20 to as high as 35 knots there off of Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. And a quick check of the weather map. There's that low creeping out of the North Pacific into the southwestern Gulf on Sunday, with the frontal system wrapping along the length of the Gulf, producing a mix of heavy snow, precipitation that will include some light freezing rain and heavier rains in the southern panhandle. So that's it for tonight's show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to join me again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.